The award for the Malaysian Entrepreneur of the Year 2007 goes to Mr. Edmund Santhara, Master Skill.
YB, thanks so much for making time to speak to us today.
My pleasure.
You have the distinction, a number of distinctions I must say. One is you were the first emerging category winner to win Entrepreneur of the Year Malaysia. And of course you are the first Malaysian Entrepreneur of the Year to have gone into politics and have become a minister and so on. Maybe you can share with us your experience when you won the Entrepreneur of the Year. How did you feel, as an individual and for your organisation then?
In fact, I think back then, I still recall walking into the hall and being from an emerging category, so I never thought that I would win. And it was indeed a great evening and gave me a lot of confidence to my staff and organisation and so on. And subsequently winning the Malaysian Entrepreneur for that year and representing Malaysia. Back then the Prime Minister was Tun Haji Abdullah Patawi. And getting the letter to represent Malaysia was a great honour. And I think that for successful businessmen and especially entrepreneurs, I think this award really means a lot of. Well, I would say that it's the thing that you should have back then. But more than that, the moment you win the award, you also got a lot of pressure performing and so on. Being an emerging category, that time we were not a listed co back then, so we were 2 years away from being a listed company and so on. So a lot of hard work were put into place to achieve that. But likewise, it's a great award, it's a great trophy to have with you. When you win the award in Malaysia, you think you're top of the world and so on. So eventually when you see the other entrepreneurs throughout the world, then you could see that there are very successful entrepreneurs from various fields. In fact, we made a lot of friends and gave me a lot of ideas and so on. In fact, I was all charged up being in Monte Carlo, and we had to make some good connections even in India and some other entrepreneurs that we thought that we want to work together. Some of them even offered to bring my organization back then in their country and so on, and vice versa. The one thing that I like to share, so once you are in Monte Carlo being representing a country, you feel that you're actually representing Malaysia and you're carrying a Malaysian flag. But end of the day, it's not about winning the World Award. Being among them, able to talk to them, understand how their business, how they operate in their environment, that gives you an enriching experience, which even though now I'm in politics and so on, but these memories are, something that I can never forget.
Maybe, so talking about politics is interesting. Maybe you can share, and I'm sure the people watching this video will be interested to know how has been the transition, or why was there a transition from entrepreneurship into politics, and how has entrepreneurship helped you in your current area of focus?
I think one of it is in 2010. Other than it was a great year. 2010 has been a great year. Other than getting my company listed, and then in May, and then eventually in month of November, I gone through a brain aneurysm surgery, and then subsequently another one in 2011. So left and right brain. So once you go through brain aneurysm surgery and so on, then I look at things very differently. At that point of time, the company was already listed and $1 billion plus market cap and so on. And we have put plans into place and so on. So once you go through this life and death situation, then you tend to think very differently. That one also because the doctor said that I may have 5 years, in a good run. So then I said that, okay, we'll have to look something differently. See, being an entrepreneur and organization, yes, it's great. And your benchmark is based on your revenue, your profit, your earnings after tax and so on. And being a listed co, that you're always under pressure to perform and always increase revenue
Yes.
by a certain percentage and so on. Right? Very exciting at young age to do it. But likewise, being in Malaysia, I come through a lot of hindrance from regulation, government regulations, which back then I felt that if I had a little support from the government with the market cap and so on, we're already a top 10 education company in the world. And if I find it, and I thought that if the regulators were friendly to us, we could be among top 3 until today. So a lot of challenges and so on, because Malaysia wasn't ready for a listed co and so on. And I personally felt that that a lot of things could be done better. And 2 years after the company got listed and so on, I really felt that I could actually contribute more toward the society by being in politics. Especially, you contribute towards policy changes and so on. Because in terms of company, you're talking about, no matter how big you are just an organization. You can do a lot of social impact and changes in that particular field. But if you want a greater policy and so on, then you have to be in the parliament. And that's where I decided in 2013. I still recall it was 3rd of April. So I was telling my wife that if the Prime Minister back then, Datuk Seri Najib, if he dissolved the parliament on 3rd of April, then it's an indication that I will resign and I will go into politics. It was just a joke.
And he did it.
And then he did in 3rd of April, and then that's where I decided 2 weeks after that I want to inform my board that I would like to step down and I want to contest as an independent candidate. Everybody thought it was a crazy idea. They thought you're not going to win. And I told them that it's not about winning. I just want to learn politics. And I stood as an independent candidate in Hulu Selangor. I only managed to get 999 votes. One shot to. He didn't make it to 1,000. Then subsequently, I joined a party, and then I worked in Segamat for the next 4 years. And it's a very sweet experience winning over MIC president back then, and also they've been there for 60 over years. So it's a great journey.
So it's amazing that you have managed to pivot from running an organization, of course, looking at all the targets that you have set, you said, right, and building different aspects. But I'm intrigued by the fact that the life-changing moment, that you said, has allowed us to have you in a mode of helping build a better working world in Malaysia in that sense.
In fact, I strongly believe that, at that point in time I was very much younger.
Yeah.
So I'm 50 this year. Back then was 30 plus, late 30s. That I felt that we have contributed a lot in changing the health science sector in Malaysia in terms of nursing and so on, from shortage to be able to export our nurses to the world. But I'm sure that if we have this corporate experience of people with experience of industry or business and so on, or entrepreneurs, if they engage into business or they're into business, so they'll be able to help the others, able to create more entrepreneurs, a better environment, a better legislation, and also as regulators, we are there to support the industry. In contrary, 10 years ago, I noticed the regulators were not really supporting the industry. Even to get an IPO approval, it takes about 6 months, a simple approval. So I said that I want to be in politics and I want to contribute to this nation. I will give myself a maximum of about 10 years. I'll give these 10 years to public service, and that's what I've been doing in Segamat. But however, there are greater challenges. It's not as easy as what we think. When you're a CEO of an organization, you're only answerable to your board of directors and eventually to your shareholders in AGM.
Yeah.
But when you're a politician, you're answerable to everybody, including anybody in your constituency,
Social
or your
media as
voters. And yeah, in the last 5 years, we have seen how social media is very important, and it can make you become a hero, or even somebody will see you as a villain. So those are great challenges. But eventually, as a politician, when I'm a deputy minister right now, I think the challenges would be what I discussed in the cabinet and so on. A deputy minister, you do not sit in the cabinet, but then you do contribute your ideas and opinions in various methods. Because for business world, it's all about timing.
Yeah.
And sometimes that if they're able to solve the problem earlier, then they can finish up the project earlier, and it's all about money.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about leverage borrowings and
Yes.
so on, interest rate.
Yes.
So a traditional politician or career politician will not be able to see this, because in fact, surprisingly, if you look into parliament, a lot of traditional politicians have never worked in a corporate life entirely before. They are traditional politicians. So they will look things very different perspective. They will look things from regulator perspective. But if you are an entrepreneur, you're a businessman, and then you go into politics, that you'll be able to see both sides of the coin. And that will be easier, and you can find a win-win-win solution for all the parties, the company, the ministry, and eventually the public. And I think that's a challenge, to make sure that everybody win.
Yeah. Actually, it's very interesting what you comment, YB, because being someone who is an entrepreneur, I think you're an entrepreneur at heart. You will always be in some way an entrepreneur. Being able to move into a political area and look at things differently is actually a very, I guess, a very positive balance to the whole ecosystem, right, in that sense. How do you see, in your ministry now, as Deputy Minister of Tourism and so on, how do you see your role in social environment, social governance, ESG? Is there anything that you're doing in that space?
If you look into the business perspective, Motec in fact is very close in heart with organization. We work very closely with various associations, hotel associations, tourist agents, tour agents, or the top type, the travel operating businesses and so on. So we work from a lot of angles. That's why recently we noticed that we also have tourist guides that we count for environmental products and so on. So we have a special category for that.
Right.
So that shows our commitment towards in terms of environment and so on.
So Habib, interesting, from one of the youngest entrepreneurs who has represented us in the World Entrepreneur of the Year 2007, moving along the line and how you are giving back to society through your political career, and what's next for maybe what's next for you? You said 10 years. 10 years is
well to me personally, when I first started into when I left my corporate job, very well paying corporate job.
Yes.
And it's amazing. Back then you work hard, that at the end of the year you get a very good bonus, paycheck and so on. Whereas in politics, that doesn't mean that you work hard, that you get that kind of recognition. There's a lot of factors are involved. But eventually, I'm not a career politician, so I don't intend to cling on this until 90 years old. So I said 10 good years in politics, and this is my first term. So if I'm given a second term and able to contribute to this country, I love to do it. But then again, in politics, it's very unpredictable. Likewise, if it's a good run, yes, I'll go for it. Otherwise, well, you're an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur. So look into some business ideas and opportunities. I thought a couple of that, which I like to keep it close to my chest. I think that in the event that I'm no longer a politician, I'm no longer an MP, perhaps I will look into some niche markets and so on. So perhaps I'll go back and do something. After all, I'm 50 and still will have another 10 good years run in business world.
Maybe no conversation will not be complete without advice. What advice would you give for entrepreneurs out there or young people out there who are coming through the ranks, looking at new ideas, and so what advice would you give them on how they can build their entrepreneurial journey?
Right. As a EY winner back then, I would say that as entrepreneurs, I think most importantly is to identify a product or a service which is very unique. And it could be as small as it is. But even in small things, if you do in a big way, you'll be successful. That's what exactly my business model back then. Do small things in big way. Just one simple product and take it or service and build it on. Well, from the political perspective, since I'm an MP right now, I would say to the entrepreneurs, always look at us as we are there to facilitate you. If you have problems, you have issues, if you need advice and if you need help, do look for us, and I'm more than happy to guide them, to help them, especially involving licensing or what they call it, or legislation. Sometimes that in certain industries very highly regulated.
Yes.
As long as entrepreneurs make money, the businesses make money, the government will be able to collect tax.
Yes.
And that tax, on top of tax being collected from the public, is very used in government to run.
Yes.
So our job is there to ensure businesses flourish. We want to make sure entrepreneurs are successful, and therefore that you'll make more money and government will be able to collect more tax.
Yeah.
If you ask me, that's the only objective.
This makes so much sense, right? If that happens. So Seri, I just want to wish you all the very best. Thank you so much for making time to speak to us. I know you had changed so many different things in your schedule to come here, and I hope that EY continues to have a special place in your journey, and we wish you all the very best as you progress in whatever you plan to do going forward. Thank you, YB.
Thank you, Satish. Thank you.